We've got Pete McGuire joining me to wrap up the day and I suppose the week's market coverage. Pete, great to have your company. Perhaps get your view on the first week of 2023, I should say. What's it been like for you?
Well, good afternoon, Kyle. It hasn't been a bad week, really. When you're thinking about, if you're looking at the Aussie market, it was fairly wild as far as, whipsawing. It's been not a bad day today across Asia. I noticed the Philippines is down about 0.9, but everything else seems to be nearly, even Stevens or up and up, nicely. So, if we can build on that, let's see where we are in the next couple of weeks as we re-engage and move forward and get, into the business cycle of things. First week's always a slow week. And I don't think the US is disappointed. They've continued to demonstrate where they are as far as equity markets, volatile and maybe being drawn down a little bit. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to those numbers coming out tonight and wrapping the week up.
Yeah, definitely. So what can we expect from those numbers for the NFPs? It looks like still reasonable strength in the US labour market.
Yeah, I think so, Kyle. I mean, that's what the analysts are all, I think, suggesting. Too wild to go out there and come up with a headline number because you can be out by hundreds of thousands. But I think the overall consensus is reasonably positive, which is a good sign. And as we move forward, we've got a couple of interesting meetings on next week. We've got that meeting in Sweden with the central bankers, Japan represented, Fed Chair Powell and Bank of England and a number of others. So that'll be interesting how their symposium is presented to the market and, market sentiment feeding off that. And a little bit of other data also taking on board from, CPIs and GDP numbers across the globe. And, the general theme of things and all factors impacting currency markets.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get to a chart actually that you, I think, had in your note this morning, which was Tokyo CPI. Yeah. Can you explain to us what we're looking at there? Because, of course, we saw almost unprecedented. It's probably not quite unprecedented, but it's certainly unusual move from the Bank of Japan to actually tighten policy at the margins last month.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the viewers' sake, it's been a long drink between rate rises in Japan. We're looking now, it's the best part of 16 years since the last hike by the BOJ. So that's not 16 months, but 16 years. So there's the story there. So, and that's nearly a generation as far as traders are concerned. So when you're seeing the yellow line there or the golden one, CPI, all items less food, less alcoholic beverages and energy year on year, you're seeing that number approaching that 1.5, 1.6 sort of handle. And then the CPI, the Tokyo all items foodless. So it's again, that number. Now, less food, I should say, and less alcohol and beverages. It's running a little bit lower than that. So, we've seen certainly an uptick from what we saw as far as 2020, 2021, under zero, and now we're certainly above that. And whether that continues to creep up from these sort of numbers, inflation is impacting the world, and what are we going to see higher energy prices, Kyle, and what that could represent also to a graph like that come March or April.
Without a doubt. And what about the Aussie today as well? I mean, it took me a while to actually get a feel on this news, but there seems to be some reports, I should say, out of China that it could be easing some property restrictions.
Yeah.
We've seen the Aussie come off a little bit in the last day or so, perhaps because of that strong US data. But you've got the Aussie dollar chart here for us. That's the 200-day moving average. That's a pretty significant level, no?
Well, it certainly is. And the other side, of course, is that we can't get our mind away that it's been a 10% move to the upside since October. So, if you didn't make $1 in that trading window, then go back to the charts and look at how you should have been entering a market. And now comes a point, probably, it's been a consolidation phase for a week or two. And whether we are going to crack that 200-day moving average and move up higher from here, I think the jury's out a little bit. But if it does get that momentum and that good news story coming from China, Kyle, then we could see a further nice leg up for the Aussie. So, it's just better than anyone. You've been in that industry and it's 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, and the market never sleeps.
No, it doesn't. It's always certainly good for those with a short attention span, always needing
Yes.
plenty of action, and perhaps insomniacs as well, it has to be said. But let's just get one more chart in, because it's a really interesting one on the US versus EU economy. Of course, an inundation of US data recently, but of course, we've got the EU economy that we're worried about as well. Can you talk to us through here just what we're looking at?
Well, when you're seeing US GDP and the Eurozone GDP, there's the first sign. One's blue and one's yellow. And then you've really seen that, V-shaped recovery, as we all spoke about. It created in 2020, and then it was off to the races, and that stimulus-led recovery. And that is perfect textbook of what we've seen as far as, move to the upside. And it's just been extraordinary. And where we go forward from here, well, that's no one knows the future, but I think the overall consensus is longer term things will be okay, but are we going to go through some tough times ahead, Kyle, with interest rate policies and inflation, and of course unemployment starting to rise and major corporations starting to lay off?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting there too, although it's only perhaps to my eye, but the European economy hasn't really returned yet to its pre-pandemic trends. So we've gotten used to an anemic Europe, and it seems to be, much the same now as it was before, obviously, the pandemic. But Pete, thank you so much for helping us wrap up the day. You've been very, very helpful throughout the week as well. I will let you get to your weekend. I hope it's a fantastic one. Pete McGuire there from XN.
Thank you, Kyle. Cheers, man.